U.S. House District 9 candidates debate how to push back against Trump. This? Yeah, this one.
Top candidates vying to replace longtime Congresswoman Jan
What's with the silly hair? Okay.
Schakowsky in the North Side 9th Congressional District.
What's with the music?
They face off only on Fox Chicago. Among other outlets, and she is originally from Texas. Thank you, everybody. We have a lot to get to tonight, a lot of candidates, but we do appreciate you being here in this all-important race. So let's get right to it, starting with the issue of democracy, which is the top polling issue in your, district. Love or hate Trump, Daniel Biss. It's clear that he's consolidated power in the executive branch. Congress is nowhere to be seen on issues like tariffs or war powers. What will you do on day one to reassert the role of Congress and to strengthen the checks and balances of democracy?
Well, there's two different parts of this. Part of it is just literally using the function of Congress to hold the president accountable. That means hearings, it means using the subpoena power, it means impeachments, not only of the president, but of other executive and judicial branch officials. All of this is necessary, but I think it's also worth just backing, zooming out for a second. How did we get here? Congress has relinquished its responsibility, not just in the Trump era, but for longer than that, backing away from its role as the legislative branch, passing laws to actually solve the country's most significant problems, and backing away from its oversight role. And we need people in Congress who are prepared to be muscular and aggressive and fearless in reasserting that role. When Congress leaves the power vacuum that it left, the outcome that we've gotten should not be a surprise.
Specifically, Laura Fine, on the issue of elections, there's concern about Trump's impact on the upcoming elections. What will you do, day one, to strengthen democracy, reassert the role of Congress, and...
She literally frame mugs everyone here. That is true. She is frame mugging right now.
Reassert checks and balances.
Absolutely. This is something, when I'm knocking on people's doors, that they're talking about. And it's very personal to me. I spent many years teaching in the political science department at Northeastern Illinois University and teaching a study of the Constitution. I feel like this administration has taken our Constitution, ripped it up, and thrown it away. It's time for Congress to act. We cannot wait any longer.
Feed people, clothe people. We do that in my campaign. Our office at 7016 North Clark Street doubles as a mutual aid hub. If you want to bring by men's clothes, toothpaste, toothbrushes, shampoo, or conditioner, we could really use your help. But the Democratic Party could be doing this at large with its massive donor base.
All right, Mr. Biss, are there some perhaps extreme tactics Democrats should resort to and maybe not move forward, assuming this is like the 90s or the early 2000s?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, we are dealing with a different kind of threat. And we can't use the old playbook we've used, and that means using every single tool at our disposal. So you're right, the filibuster is an example, and I think all of us are incredibly frustrated that the Senate failed not once, but twice, right? First a year ago, and then more recently in the fall. Okay.
Where does the cooking happen?
Go ahead and respond.
This is the exact type of...
You also said you'd be mayor for the next 4 years when you were elected. And my question is, how can people trust that?
So literally all of that is
very
untrue.
Quickly, because I do need to get Ms. Abu-Ghazal. If you want to just respond very quickly.
I want to be clear. So all of that is untrue. But more importantly, here is the criticism that you keep running away from. Your campaign is bankrolled by AIPAC and MAGA donors. You had more money from Trump donors the last quarter of 2025 than from our own district. And I think that raises a really fundamental question, which is, who will you be representing when you get to Congress?
I have to respond to
this. Just very quickly.
I have a handful of bipartisan donors, about 3% who've donated to my campaign. Anybody who's donating to my campaign, I'm sorry, I just need to finish, is donating to a woman who has a record of being 100% pro-choice, 100% pro-environment, who, again, has stood up to the biggest bullies and won. Right. Anybody who's donating to my campaign knows that if you're a millionaire or a billionaire, I'm willing to raise your taxes.
All right,
this is what they're
I do want to bring Ms. Abu-Ghazal into this. We did get an email from 9th District resident Stephen Levin. He sent us a tweet.
Wait, real quick before we get
go ahead
to
and
that.
respond.
This is the exact type of hypocrisy that people are sick of in politics. Over and over again, the lying, the bickering over who likes AIPAC more. The idea that you can separate yourself even after meeting with them, even after pushing. An organization that supports this administration and that is supporting a genocide is not a group you should meet with. And frankly, both of you are trying to push policies that, even if you're supporting the Block the Bombs Act, have a lot of very precarious and dangerous implications, such as anti-BDS legislation, such as not conditioning certain aid. We need to ensure that we are following our own laws and not lying about who we are or who's supporting us.
Okay, so speaking of Israel and Palestine, Ms. Abu-Ghazala, we got an email from 9th District resident Stephen Levin, who brought up this tweet of yours from 2024, responding to President Biden's criticism of Hamas. It said, pretending October 7th was motivated by ancient desires to kill Jews is not only wildly racist, but wrong. Like 99% of attacks in history, both by military and terrorists, October 7th was not in a vacuum.
Of course, they have like the years-old tweet ready to confront her with, you know?
It had motivation, which is why they took hostages. Is this somehow saying that the October 7th attack was justified?
Not at all.
What the fuck? Jesus Christ. The fuck is wrong with these people, man? That wasn't even remotely what was implied by her tweet. These fucking people.
Oh, that's not at all what I was saying. But what I'm saying here is, first off, regarding President Biden's comments, where he described that as motivated by ancient desires. That is a very loaded statement, I say, as a Palestinian person, that implies that there is some bloodthirst between Palestinians or Jewish people, and it's dangerous to both of us. Our lives are inextricable from
one another. Well, he was referring to Hamas. He was referring to Hamas specifically.
But even
how could Hamas be motivated by ancient desires when the organization has existed for like 30 years? What the fuck are you talking about? It was very obviously a racial thing. Hamas was just acting on their ancient Hamas desire. No, he was talking about Arabs.
Then Hamas is in Gaza. It's being associated with Palestinians by both the Biden government and the Trump administration. And so you can't just look at their actions and hear their words and not see a relation there. Additionally, for the second part, I think it's important to mention that, yes, it didn't happen in a vacuum because of Netanyahu's far-right government and because of a pattern of discrimination, a pattern of second-class citizenship, a pattern of exile, and a pattern of displacement that my own family underwent. And my position on this is really not that radical. Every civilian deserves to be safe. No child deserves to go to bed hungry. Every war criminal should be held accountable. And Palestinians deserve we should recognize their statehood so they can negotiate a solution on equal footing.
Netanyahu, do you all consider him a war criminal? Would you support international war criminal charges? One hand up.
I mean, we should participate in international processes. There should be thorough investigations, and I think the answer is likely going to be yes, absolutely.
It's not likely, yes, it is.
I want to be clear about one thing here, which is very important for people who are concerned about this issue to understand.
We'll see.
AIPAC is attacking one candidate in this race. AIPAC is attacking me and only me. They see me as the biggest threat to their agenda. They see me as the biggest threat because they know I'll be an effective critic of the Netanyahu government when they act the way they have, and they know I'll be effective at building coalitions to
even if they're fucking lying about it, it is pretty cool that we've reached a point in this country where Democratic primary candidates have to pretend to be anti-AIPAC. You know? This only happened a couple years, like over the past 2-3 years. Prior to that, the degree of open collaboration between AIPAC, the Israeli government, and the Democrats was just it was just like a fact of life, basically.
Actually end the nightmare and bring about peace, and that's what I'm going to do in Congress. AIPAC knows it. I think the voters of the 9th District do too.
I think there's something else that's missing here that we have to discuss. You can love your country and disagree with your leadership. I love my country. I don't like Trump. I love Israel and the Israelis. Netanyahu has to go. And
classic J Street line right here. You know, ignore the fact that the average Israeli wants wants mass Arab death, is in favor of greater Israel. You know, insane. And by the way, they're getting more conservative over time. Younger Israelis are more Hitlerite than older ones.
I've been saying that for a very long time, way before October 7th. But I think right now what we need to focus on is how do we get to a two-state solution? How do we make sure there's safety, peace, and dignity?
How is that possible? I think that young people are particularly vulnerable to the human tendency to need a narrative. And I think that in Israel, everyone there understands that there is only one path forward, and it's in mass destruction. I think that like there's no they cannot envision a future where Israel becomes like a peaceful nation that lives in harmony with its neighbors or whatever. The only path forward is like the annihilation of all Arabs, permanent war. That's all they can envision. They can't imagine anything else. And at this point, that might be the only thing that's possible. It's just our job to make sure they lose.
For the Palestinians in Gaza and the Israelis.
What about the West
Israel.
Bank?
The West Bank, too.
So, okay, let's focus on the West Bank.
I want to jump in here, Chris, because this is
let's talk about the West Bank.
Should there be a withdrawal of Israeli settlements in the West Bank?
Of course.
Yes.
I'm opposed to the settlements.
Should there be a withdrawal of Israeli forces in the West Bank?
Yes, we need peace and dignity everywhere.
Ms. Abu Ghazala, what about the state of Israel? Do you support the state of the right of Israel to exist as a state?
I think that this question is said as if it doesn't exist. What we need is to ensure that any solution, whether that is a two-state, a single secular state, whatever it is negotiated not by America, but by the people that actually live there, by Israelis and Palestinians. This is, my great-grandfather had a hotel. And when they were expelled, he carried around the key ring to every single door in his hotel till the day he died. He was buried.
And he was he lived in Palestine?
Yes, my father's side is Palestinian. And if someone came to me and said, you could have the hotel, but you displaced 300 people, I would say absolutely not, because trauma begets trauma. But I think it's really important that any solution has full civil and legal rights for everyone living there, regardless of their ethnicity, their religion, and that is decided by the people who actually live there, because we spend so much of our time as a country interfering in other countries and saying that we dictate how they live, and it's just made places worse.
All right, so Palestinian American, two Jewish Americans on this panel do believe there is an anti-Semitism problem
Absolutely.
in the United States.
And I've devoted my career to fighting it. I cover the far right. Conspiracy theories are inherently rooted in anti-Semitism, which is why it's so dangerous.
He's so fucking committed to race warring this shit, man. Your tweet criticizing this obviously racist Biden statement, does this mean you agree with Hamas? Oh, you're a Palestinian. They're both Jewish. How do we feel? Race war. Race war. Like, God, man. I hate Democrats. Well, Democrats aren't the only ones who do this kind of race war. Republicans also do this kind of race war. So Republicans are much more openly contemptuous of Arab people.
With far-right donors because they're pushing the Great Replacement theory, which has inspired almost every mass shooting of the 21st century.
What about anti-Muslim sentiment, anti-Palestinian sentiment?
It's a horrible problem. It's a horrible problem.
And I think we need to go back to something that Kat said that I agree with. When we figure out this two-state solution, the Palestinians need to be brought to the table. Because right now we are in a humanitarian crisis, and we have to make sure that every individual has the opportunity to be fed, to be housed, has health care, has schools. Right now, I think President Trump is making us a laughingstock.
Framing, yeah, you always know who you can't trust because they always act like they are providing support to people after a hurricane, Natural disaster talk. Oh, they need to be provided health care? Who's denying them health care? They need to be provided, food and shelter. Who's keeping the food and the shelter away from them? Like it's natural disaster language. We've normalized it in so many contexts.
He's talking about building hotels and golf courses in Gaza. That's not what the Palestinian people want. They need to be brought to the table to talk about how are they going to rebuild and how are we going to get to this two-state solution.
Can I just jump into something really important? Because I do think that Senator Fine said something critical, which is what's going to get us to a place, and I forget the words you used, but I would say a place of peace and justice, and a place where there are two viable states side by side with self-determination, dignity, peace, and security. And the answer is...
This will never happen, by the way. The Israeli people are too primed for genocide. It will not happen. The Israeli government needs to be defanged to the point where it's not capable of engaging in war. If Israel had its nukes removed and wasn't given constant support by the U.S., it would not be able to just flippantly strike all of its neighbors the way they do right now. Just give Hamas nukes. It would give them a bit of a regional balance. We need to Japanify Israel. Yeah, genuinely.
Not what we've been doing. The answer is not continuing to give unconditional military aid to Israel. And the problem is AIPAC doesn't want a two-state solution.
Do you support any aid to Israel? Or could that,
Yeah, I
could that scuttle?
support, for example, defensive weaponry. I support Iron Dome, for instance.
Ms. Abu-Ghazali, any aid to Israel at all?
Defensive weaponry is an oxymoron. Weapons are inherently offensive, and for any
Do you
ally.
support Iron Dome?
No, I don't support any. We need to condition all aid to any country, any ally. It doesn't matter if it's Israel
so
or if
Iron
it's
Dome
Mexico.
was where they shoot down.
No, it's psychotic that like the idea we should be providing them Iron Dome missiles now is just a given no matter what. We don't do that for any other country on Earth. No other country on Earth. There's no country where we're like, yeah, you know, just I mean, no, completely unconditional, right? Sure, give it to Hamas too, unconditional.
Missiles that are coming in.
Right. If we aren't using our leverage, there is no reason to condition any aid. We absolutely should be supporting our allies, but they have to follow our own laws first. It's not that. Then you're conditioning aid.
There's more to it. I've been to Israel. I've been in the bomb shelters. I've been to the borders. They are being attacked constantly.
Don't care. They literally started it. Don't care.
Every angle. If you do not fund something like the Iron Dome, the amount of death and destruction would be incredible, not just to the Israelis in Israel, but also to the Palestinians in Gaza.
I haven't been to Israel. Because
how the fuck would Palestine? Maybe if Israel wasn't being given weapons for literally no reason, they wouldn't feel so comfortable starting wars with every neighboring country, you know?
My dad was scared I would get detained if I went, because that is the reality, even as an American citizen. We actively need to be using our leverage against any ally that is not following our own laws. And we have seen a genocide happening in Gaza. We have been seeing.
Yeah, keep in mind that aid to Israel is illegal. Literally, there U.S. law, we cannot provide military aid, which includes Iron Dome missiles. That is also military aid. That is their missiles. That's military aid. We cannot provide them to countries that we have found to be violating international law, which everyone knows they have. This is what Biden did with the Department of State, where the Department of State was conducting an internal review to determine if Israel was using the weapons we were giving them to commit war crimes, and Biden's administration squelched the report and basically silenced the critical voices inside the Department of State that led to a bunch of people leaving.
Lack of freedom of movement. People are trapped there. They have nowhere to go. They can't even swim away from the border because they will be killed in the water. This is not that difficult. And if we're supposed to be a good ally, then we need to make sure that our allies are following basic human dignity.
All right, Mr. Biss, I want to bring up a quote that the Chicago Tribune Ed Board made about you. They said they weren't comfortable with your aggressive confrontations with agents. And we should mention, I mean, there have been viral videos of you and Ms. Abu-Ghazali. Ms. Abu-Ghazali is under indictment right now for that very thing. But will you continue that type of aggressive, in-your-face kind of activism if you're elected to Congress?
Of course. Of course. I'll do it if I'm elected to Congress. I'll do it if I'm not elected to Congress. I'll do it if I'm the mayor. I'll do it if I'm out of politics. It's critical. It's essential. We cannot win this battle against authoritarianism just inside of government buildings. It requires a movement of people out in the streets. And as mayor of Evanston, with a responsibility to represent my community and protect residents of Evanston, of course, I'm in the streets every day, and I'm going to continue doing that. That is how we beat this back.
And Ms. Abu-Ghazali, we mentioned many videos that we've seen you at Broadview. I've been out to Broadview many, many times. Lots of protesters out there, and obviously the scenes of tear gas and rubber bullets, those were horrific. But you are facing federal conspiracy charge for obstructing. How does physically blocking a law enforcement vehicle qualify as free speech? The vehicle was trying to get out and you were physically blocking it.
I can't get into any specifics on my case because that's kind of how legal cases work. But what I will say is that we've pled not guilty because this is a free speech issue. And right now, the Trump administration...
What the fuck was the framing on that question, dude? Holy shit.
What camera am I supposed to look at right now? Because I want to make sure I'm speaking to the audience.
I would say look at the moderator.
Well, the Trump administration is trying to make it illegal for you, Paris, to be able to protest, for you to be able to be in a room with other people and hold you accountable for any actions that might happen around you. They are trying to criminalize freedom of speech. They are trying to criminalize free association, and it's going to
etching the word pig into the side of a vehicle. Isn't that property damage?
I didn't do that, and it doesn't even allege that in the indictment. But honestly, that's just kind of falling for the exact same lies that ICE and the Trump administration continue to repeat. We know that ICE lies, and we know that they are trying to find any excuse to invoke the Insurrection Act, to abuse.
This is probably good for Kat in the context of this. We're talking about a Dem primary here, and nobody is in favor on the Dem side of what ICE is doing. So to position Kat, to make her defend her behavior here, it's like, you know, she's the only one who's actually done anything, right?
Protesters, and to make sure that they scare us into silence. And once again, it's not going to work. And if we don't stand up for it, people with power and platform and privilege, and frankly, the first time I went out to Broadview, the second time and the third time, there wasn't a single elected official out there, then we are just going to get run over.
And Mr. Biss, you were out in Broadview as well, and there are videos of it. Ms. Fine.
I just want to say I really agree with that. First of all, these people are liars. So don't take them at their word when they make all kinds of allegations, because you know what they said about the murder of Alex Preddy. You know what they said about the murder of Renee Good, and you shouldn't take them any more seriously.
This goes on for quite a while.
You know, I've worked side by side.
Oh, okay. This is the different slate of candidates? No, it's not. They're still on with Kat.
Park Edgewater, and I did not plan to run for Congress, and then I wanted
out where to spend all the money, that could fund something like Medicare for all and really care for the people in the United States.
Mr. Biss, another foreign policy issue. Should the U.S. continue funding Ukraine against Russia, and to what level?
Yes. I mean, there was an unlawful and vicious attack of Ukraine by Russia, and it's important from the standpoint of sovereignty as well as human rights, as well as democracy across Europe. So we need to continue supporting Ukraine.
Ms. Abou-Ghazaleh?
Yes, Putin won't stop with Ukraine. Ukraine is our ally. They were invaded against international law. It's important to continue supporting them and understand that when you stand up, if you stop standing up to bullies, they'll just keep running you over.
Ms. Fine, I mean, should there be conditioned aid to Ukraine? Republicans obviously have been debating amongst themselves what level that they want to continue to support Ukraine after 4 years.
We need to continue to support Ukraine. Like my colleagues on the stage have already said, they're not stopping here. We have a bully in Putin who will.
And the way that has been shown to succeed in stopping that is diplomacy.
And all of you back at home, have a great evening. Thank you.
Okay. Honestly, it does seem like she did a pretty good job here. She's still polling 7 points behind, though, so I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be enough. It's such a big race. Ben linked this earlier. Leaked email. Kat Abou-Ghazaleh, firmly an interventionist, foreign policy advisor says. Kat Abou-Ghazaleh, a socialist democratic candidate in Illinois' 9th district and one of the only Palestinian Americans seeking office in 2026, was described by her national security advisor as, quote, firmly an interventionist who, quote, won't stop until Russia is made to pay for its crimes. Based? Says that the world is better off when America takes a leading role and that the U.S. has, quote, an obligation to support pro-democracy candidates, pro-democracy movements around the world from Iran to Venezuela. He added that, quote, Kat wholly supports the National Endowment for Democracy as well as its affiliated organizations, NDI, IRI, and the AFL-CIO Solidarity Center, and that Congress should expand tools from sanctions to NGO support to advance those efforts without always resorting to kinetic force. This seems weird. So, wait, her foreign policy advisor, wait, let me read between the lines here. Her foreign policy advisor is what, a campist, and is upset that she's not, so she's going to media? Read down, this staffer's crazy. The DC-based activist had written to Mermel saying he had noticed unusually hawkish language on the campaign website relating to Ukraine and Taiwan, and was looking for clarification. In response, Mermel said that on Taiwan, she would amend the Taiwan Relations Act by dropping our strategic ambiguity and making clear the U.S. would counter Chinese aggression with force. Okay. On Ukraine, Mermel wrote she would hold the line, support funding the Ukraine war effort to the hilt, back long-range strikes in Russian strategic targets, deploy additional U.S. air, naval, and ground assets to NATO's front line, and that she supports the seizure and redistribution of Russian assets in Europe and United States for the purpose of financing the war effort. Okay? Is this the guy in the middle? The vibe that I'm getting from this is that this guy worked with their campaign, but was a bit of a campist and got disillusioned when he realized that Kat Abou-Ghazaleh did not co-sign Russia's conquest of, Eastern Europe or something.
Let's do Kat also. You want to do this one real quick?
Yeah.
Let's do Kat.
Yeah.
What's going on with Kat? So
Get your exclusive reporting.
So Kat is running for Congress in Illinois, correct?
Right. Chicago area.
Chicago area.
She just had a debate. Kat Abou-Ghazaleh, Palestinian American, as running as kind of the most left-wing candidate against Daniel Biss, who was the mayor of Evanston, and kind of like an Elizabeth Warren type liberal.
Yeah.
And
Progressive
Laura
for
Fine,
sure, but not exactly like Bernie Wing.
right.
I think she's more progressive than Warren, but okay.
And then Laura Fine, who is getting all of the AIPAC support. So it's kind of like a three-way race between them. The latest poll I saw had Biss up by like 6-7 points with Kat in second, which was, and then both of them beating Laura Fine, which is remarkable because Fine was kind of, Fine had the pole position here. But it seems like the AIPAC money is actually dragging her down. It's this Evanston area. It's a very well educated district.
God bless.
And so once it got out that she was secretly backed by AIPAC, it seems like all of that money is as much of a handicap as it is helping her. But so Kat may actually win this race now. And so we went to her campaign. We went to her for comment about what we're going to talk about now. I haven't heard back. Told her she's welcome to come on the show to talk about this as well. She has and let me put this up on the screen. It turns out her national security advisor is quite the hawk. And so his name's Ben Mermel, and he's the guy that does her foreign policy and national security. So there's an email going around in activist circles that has gotten to me, in which one of the kind of Washington-based organizations reaches out and say, "Hey, Kat's doing well. Like, can we get some clarification on what we've seen on her website, which seems to be some unusually hawkish positions? We see on there that she seems kind of to the right, more hawkish than Trump on Taiwan, more hawkish than Trump on Ukraine, but she's great on Palestine. So what's going on here?" And so, they got back, and I agreed to conceal the person's name so that not this person, but like that somebody would leak the email to me, because it's getting a lot of attention kind of in the background, but it's something that the public.
This is so stupid. So far, this has been really, really, really stupid. Yeah,
public should know about too. So I'll roll through these. You don't even need the questions, but you can pause this and read them if you want, because the answers are fulsome, and they kind of incorporate the questions, but you can pause this and read them if you want, because the answers are full.
Good Lord. The platform also mentions very early on that Putin's war in Ukraine presents one of the most brazen instances of an illegal and immoral invasion of one country by another since World War II. Putin's invasion has certainly been flagrantly illegal and cruel, though I do find it interesting that this, quote, most brazen instance of illegal and immoral invasion of one country by another is mentioned several paragraphs before Israel's invasion of Gaza. Seriously? We're doing this to the Palestinian girl, Kat Abigazela, that we're pulling this card? I agree that what Russia did is bad, but you said that before Ukraine, before Gaza. Like, what did you mean by that? Also, it literally says here, illegal and immoral invasion of one country by another. Post October 6th hasn't been that. The West Bank and Gaza are both territories in Israel, but they don't act and operate as autonomous countries. That's not really the dynamic, Israel controls all the shit there.
Wholesome, and they kind of incorporate the question. One, he talks about his role here. So number 4. So this is about China and Taiwan.
You weren't supposed to scroll that far down, Ryan. You were supposed to get tired of reading by that point.
Right. So he asked about China and Taiwan because they said, look on the website, it looks like kind of concerning language on the website. Are you sure? Is this really what Kat believes when it comes to Taiwan? And so the quote here, if elected, Kat would strongly push for amending the Taiwan Relations Act to include language dropping our strategic ambiguity towards defending the island from a Chinese invasion. Strategic ambiguity is actually precisely kind of what AOC was mocked for presenting when she was kind of babbling and kind of searching for an answer. Like, that is literally the current American strategy towards Taiwan, is to just babble and not answer, so that China doesn't know.
Strategic ambiguity, yes.
Like what we will actually do. And so what Kat is saying here through her advisor is that that doesn't work anymore, that we need to say that we're going to hit him. So as of now,
that we're going to defend our ally Taiwan, yes.
China knows that Trump won't send the 7th Fleet or any other Indo-PACOM assets to defend Taiwan in the event of an all-out assault. We owe it to Taiwan and democracy to demonstrate that America will do everything possible to counter wars of aggression with force.
Okay.
Extremely hawkish position.
No, that's not hawkish at all. Defending an ally with whom you have a defense treaty is not hawkish. If our ally is invaded, we will defend our ally. That's definitionally not hawkish. I hate Ryan Grimm. He'd have no issue. No. The Ryan Grimm is 100% a campus. Unfortunately, he does often say and do good things, but like this is an issue where he consistently fails time and time again. Like anytime this stuff comes up. Look, I'm all for hating America. I mean, you've all seen the kind of shit I've been on the past year and a half. But the idea that the world is made a better place by allowing China to gobble up Taiwan. Like, if you think it's right that China gets to gobble up Taiwan, you basically lose the ability to argue against anything we're doing with Iran or with Israel right now, because you're essentially endorsing the argument of like realpolitik regional hegemony, you know? Like, basically you're making the argument that like, well, China basically gets them because Taiwan's basically part of China anyway. Okay, well, then you're making an argument of what? Cultural adjacency? Do we get Mexico? Like, regional adjacency? Do we get Mexico and Canada? Like, it doesn't... I think that it is bad for the world when you normalize the idea that countries can go invading others willy-nilly, you know?
From Kat there. On Palestine, strong statement. The genocide in Gaza is a disgusting failure. You've heard her talk a lot about the genocide in Gaza, and so nothing here would surprise you. But then he adds, on her behalf, that does not mean that our historical impulse to use military force first is correct. It hardly ever is, and often causes untold damage. There are a wide range of options available to both the executive and Congress, precluding kinetic force, from sanctions to NGO support, all of which are likely to produce results when
we don't have a defense agreement with Taiwan, though. We do. We have a security agreement. Yeah. We don't explicitly have like an international defense treaty because our policy of strategic ambiguity includes the whole like kowtowing to the one China policy thing. It's not an official defense pact, but it is an acknowledgement of like mutual security interests. At any rate, like, I think all that's dumb. We shouldn't be doing the one China bullshit anyway. I think all that's stupid. We've enabled and normalized like a really big snowball rolling down the hill. But if I'm against fascism in the United States, I have to be against it elsewhere, right? The idea that Taiwan belongs to China because they didn't get to finish the Civil War 70 years ago is fucking stupid. Taiwan is obviously a separate country. In every de facto sense, they operate as a separate country. Everyone treats them like a separate country, even if they don't say it. They have everything that a separate country would have. They have their own laws and currency and jurisdictions, and that they have control over the means to violence within their own territory. Like, by every measure, they're their own country. So the idea that China gets to just fucking invade them, why? To settle a debt, or to like because it's satisfying to do so? No. It's a narrative of national conquest that serves no interest other than to appeal to the reactionary right in China. Not good.
Applied.
The only issue is Taiwan believes they're the real China, and that's retarded. But Taiwan isn't going to invade China anytime soon. And you know what? If Taiwan did try to invade China, I say the 7th Fleet can shell them from offshore. You know, why not? That's my centrist position, okay? If China invades Taiwan, we defend them, and if Taiwan invades China, then we get to reduce their island to ash, all right? I think that's fair. But yes, obviously Taiwan thinking they're the real China is also fucking stupid. But I think if China dropped that, Taiwan would probably drop it too, because they obviously do it as like a reaction to the perceived political pressure that China holds over them.
Correctly, Kat is firmly an interventionist. The world is better off when America takes a leading role in it, but that role must be ethical and lawful, and it must place human rights first. So that, so we don't want to necessarily do war, but we do want sanctions. We do want to fund NGOs that do these like protests and support our favored folks inside these different countries, and quote, firmly an interventionist. So I don't think that's what people would necessarily have expected from what
This is so dumb. It's literally a Google Doc from a guy who said that he had a conversation, an anonymous guy who said he had a conversation with a guy in Kat Abou-Gazela's campaign where he's getting pitched incredulous questions about whether or not she actually thinks that we should hold Russia to account for their illegal invasion of Ukraine. Super, super dumb. I just wanted to take a look at it, I guess. See if there's any
people
meat to
understand
it.
her when it comes to Palestine. And then on Russia, Ukraine, if elected,
let's get to the good stuff.
If elected, Kat will hold the line. Russia cannot be allowed to eke out a win in Ukraine, and Kat stands firmly against any attempt by the Trump administration to sell out our European allies to Putin's imperialism.
Okay.
Kat fully supports funding the Ukrainian war effort to the hilt until the Russian forces are degraded to the point where a near restoration of pre-war borders is possible or any other outcome preferable to the Ukrainian government. She strongly supports the forward deployment of air, naval, and ground assets to the NATO front line, as well as the positioning of dual-use missiles.
I feel like I'm watching a very anti-intellectual take. I don't think that Ryan Grimm is stupid necessarily, but the format here, like, let's go over this Google Doc and just giggle about its contents. You're basically you're polarizing yourself in this environment. You can never look at anything here and go, I wonder what's meant by that. I wonder, like, to what extent that could be good. You have to take the hard line on it because you've got, like, the crowd together. You've got the boys together. Like, is this really the right environment to be engaging with a potential leak describing her positions on foreign policy? I don't know. Seems dumb. Seems dumb.
And drone interception systems.
What if China actually enacts socialism fully and did it to liberate Taiwanese workers? What if America does socialism fully, and then when we bomb Iran, we give them socialism?
So,
what if the world was made of pudding?
assets? Are we talking about American ground assets? Well, hopefully we can get some clarity.
No, she doesn't mean American ground assets. Can we be a little bit charitable here? When she says supporting ground assets, she probably means Ukrainian ground assets, not America getting involved in the war. I think if she believed America should get involved in the war, that would be a little more front and center, like directly involved.
From her on that. We must additionally surge MIM 104 page. And this sounds like Ben Mermel here is kind of like one of the, like a bit of a military geek. So he goes deep into the like weapon systems that he wants to see placed on the border. The Chinese are closely watching our actions in Ukraine, and the outcome of this conflict will determine the nature of their attempt to seize Taiwan, possibly preventing it altogether. If Ukraine can pull off a diplomatic win, we owe it to those that gave their lives of aggression throughout our history.
What a fascinating take on the Google Doc. How interesting. What a... I wasn't expecting them to go there, but you know, it's a novel position, certainly.
History and people seeking freedom everywhere to not cower in fear. Kat will be that voice on the Hill, and she won't stop until Russia is made to pay for its crimes. So I don't know what do you? Is that what you would have expected from?
No.
Camden?
Okay.
Not at all. Not firmly an interventionist. It's like, whoa. And so, I mean, I guess my question is...
But the language is coming from someone that isn't her, and it's being described by someone else, too. So, I mean, the specific language isn't as important as the underlying sentiment.
You know, it's like I have a lot of, I guess, sort of charity towards new congressional candidates, having myself been a congressional candidate in the past and knowing where I was coming from is just being like, you know, kind of a regular person who just wanted to serve the country. I mean, granted, Kat has been in the political space for a long time, right? Mm-hmm. But foreign policy outside of
They disagree with the underlying sentiment too? Crystal is not as campist as Ryan Grimm.
You know, planted her flag very effectively on Palestine. It's not like that's what she's known for.
Right.
So, you know, I would be open to the idea that like she kind of outsourced this to Ben and hasn't really fully thought it through, in which case there's a lot of opportunity to say, you know, this is how we end up in the Iraq war, right? This is how we end up bombing Libya. This is how we end up with failed states. And
I think that you can pretty fairly draw a distinction between the sentiment that Kat is allegedly expressing here and the sentiment that led to the Iraq war. Like, I agree there is an interventionist slippery slope that you have to be careful with, but at the same time, the idea that, like, defending Taiwan if they're invaded, or supporting Ukraine resisting the invasion of a neighboring fascist expansionist country, that those things are comparable to what led to the Iraq War. It's just not true. The Iraq War wasn't like a well-intentioned effort at promoting democracy that was corrupted. It was from the beginning a very transparent, religiously motivated colonial war that was fueled by open dishonesty that was widely discussed in and out of the White House. There wasn't like a good intention that got lost in the process. It's pretty difficult. I think that Libya might be a better example, but even then, in Libya's case, like, we attacked a country, which Kat just isn't endorsing here. You're not attacking China if you say you would defend Taiwan against China. Those are different things.
Doing all these like color revolutions, and this is effectively the type of foreign policy we've had for decades, going back into the Cold War. And if you want to do something different, this is not what it looks like. So I am anxious to hear from her directly on.
You could just ask her to come on, right? She probably would. No, I like Crystal. I think that Crystal is just looking for clarification here.
This, because
that's why she was quiet when they were actually reading over the document, I think. Which I think is smart of her.
This is very, very surprising to me that this is the type of language that is being used here.
There's also one other weird element here. This guy Ben, according to this GW article, he's quoted at a pro-Israel rally, where he's. And I can maybe put this on Twitter, but let me find this. What's his quote here? It's like, what are you doing at the pro-Israel? So Ben Mermel, here it is. Let me put it up. Ben Mermel, a graduate student in the School of Public Affairs, attended the pro-Israel rally alongside Harris Mowbray, who graduated from the School of International Service in 2002. Referring to the nearby encampment, there's a lot of points that they're making over there that I also agree with. I think they've done a bad job policing the anti-Semitism that sometimes rears its head within that movement, and I think that's turned.
See, this to me is more interesting. If Kat Abigazela's foreign policy guy is like a weird liberal, that's probably not good,
Quite a lot of people off. This comment aside, like, during the genocide in Gaza, there was a
foreign policy of that are, I don't remember. It was like, Ryan, you probably remember better. It was like calling for a ceasefire or negotiations or diplomacy or something.
Yep.
It was, I remember it being, people are dying, and the more time goes on, the worse the solution is likely to get for Ukraine. So I understand why.
I'm not going to engage with the Ukraine stuff right now. It's okay. Okay, I was just curious. Just satisfying my curiosity. What are we even debating? Dog, who knows? Who even knows anymore? Please vote for Kat Abigazela. Also, I don't want to be like, I just misspelled Abigazela. I did AH instead of EH. I don't want to be like annoying or one of those types of guys or whatever, but like, Kat is obviously the best candidate within this primary. We probably shouldn't be fermenting antagonism towards her just a couple of days before the primary. I mean, if there's anything to go after her for, give her the best shot you can in the primary, then attack her before the general, or not attack ideally, I guess, but inquire. Oh my goodness. I don't think any of these guys are acting in bad faith. At least not Crystal.